All right, hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccer Files Canada. We are continuing our look at 2021 African Cup players, and today we are looking at Sudan. And woo, do we have a story for you on this one? I'll get into it when I introduce the coaches, but I'll just say that um, yeah, for YouTube listeners, we have a simple graphic where we put the names up so that you can actually see them. And for audio listeners, we will um, try to repeat the name 3 times at least so that you become familiar with some of the names here, which is our overall purpose. So I'm going to do this podcast a little bit differently. Normally, what we do is we kind of look at the players, especially their participation um, over the last year or so, and then we kind of decide whether they look like definite candidates, likely, possible but unlikely, seem to be off the squad, retired, or injured. And then we look at the actual selection of players and kind of check to see if our predictions were right. Try to determine who's going to be a starter for the team and any new players that kind of made it onto the squad late. In this case, though, I'm not going to do that because basically what happened here is that in December they replaced the whole team. I'll tell you about it soon. So a lot of the players who looked like likely candidates were not selected. Goalkeepers and forwards were generally retained, but looks like they completely replaced the defense and midfield. And the reason is because well, let's get into it by introducing the manager. Anyway, for that reason, we're not going to look at formations for this because it seems like everything has changed. So we'll go directly to the team and we'll look at what happened there. So basically, the manager who got them to this cup, Hubert Veloud, who I've put in red highlights here, because he is no longer the manager. He was sacked in December. What happened there is after getting them to the African Cup, most of those qualifying games having been played in the first half of 2021. So he was successful there. But in the second half of 2021, they didn't do well in World Cup qualifying. And more specifically, they didn't do well in the Arab Cup in December. In fact, it was a bit humiliating. They lost 4-0 to Algeria, 5-0 to Egypt, and were knocked out of the cup at the group stage. So you can imagine that they weren't too happy with the defense there. For some reason, they don't seem to have blamed the goalkeepers for any of that, or perhaps they don't have any other goalkeepers to rely on. It's hard to say, but anyway, they sacked Herbert Veloud and brought in Burhan Tia. So I'll tell you a little bit about both managers. Um, Hubert Veloud has quite a career managing teams in France until he became manager of Togo in 2009, 2010. Anyone who follows the African Cup may remember that Togo decided to travel to Angola by bus, which apparently they were advised not to do. And ran through, I think it's Kabande, kind of a rough section of Angola where there was civil unrest, and their bus got shot up by terrorists. I think Veloud himself took a bullet in the arm. I'm not sure where I read that, but anyway, his assistant coach and the bus driver were killed, and it was obviously a terrifying moment for the team and kind of ruined Togo's African Cup that year. Since then, though, he went on to coach some of the biggest teams in Africa, in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, particularly, also with TP Mazembe in Congo, which I think is one of their biggest teams there, until Sudan secured his services in 2020. So he was manager of the Sudan team. As I say, got them to this cup, but then they were disappointed and sacked him in December, just weeks before the cup. So in comes manager Burhan Tia. He's Sudanese and himself has managed a lot of teams in Sudan. So he's very familiar with the Sudan League. And they put him in the position as manager. Well, either he or the FA or both of them decided on this massive change to the line. Well, they hadn't decided on their team, but in deciding their team, kind of ignored all their veterans, especially in defence and midfield, and brought in brand spanking new players who had no experience with the national team. And we'll take a look at them as we go through this podcast. But that's the story. So Burhan Tia, the manager, Hubert Falud out. Okay, so we're going to look at goalkeepers first, and they actually didn't make significant changes to the goalkeeper position, but I'll just introduce the candidates here. So, by the way, Sudan has not made it to the African Cup since 2012. So, was it 2013 or 12? Anyway, 2012, I think. So very few of these players will have been on that squad. The first goalkeeper who we considered definite was Ali Abu Eshrin. And I got to tell you, Sudan is a little difficult to research because the names for these players on websites kind of differ from website to website. So you kind of have to match them up. And I don't know what the default name always is. So I'll just be trying my best to identify them here. Anyway, Ali Abu Eshrin looks like the starting keeper. He played 10 of their 11 games in 2021. And he just joined the team in 2019 and has 26 caps and is 32 years old. He plays for Al Hilal Omdurman in Sudan, as almost all of these players do, not for Al Hilal, but for teams in Sudan. Very few of them play outside of Sudan. So he looks like the starter. So I will indicate that on the little graphic we have for YouTube people and move on to two likely candidates, Mohammed Abuja. Mohammed Abuja made his first and only appearance in November 2021. So he just has one cap and is very young at 21 years old. He also plays for Al Hilal Omdurman. Also likely Ishaq Adam. Ishaq Adam returned after a 3-year absence in September, but played none of their remaining 8 games, but was on the bench for 4 of them. So he has been with the team since 2018. He's just 22 years old and has 2 caps for them. And like the other 2, also plays for Al Hilal Omdurman in Sudan. We'll just kind of mention by name the next one because he seems an unlikely candidate, but it is Akram Al-Hadi Salim. Akram Al-Hadi Salim played none of their games in 2021. And actually, when I researched this, the Arab Cup had not happened yet. So that's kind of not included in the count. We never know if teams sent their best players to the Arab Cup, although it turns out quite a few of them did. Probably their best local players, but for Sudan, that would be everyone. And then obviously, because of the decision that's been made, we can guess Sudan did send their best team to the Arab Cup, but that's not included in this count when I researched the players initially in December. So he played none of those games in 2021, and he was on the bench for the first 2, but not selected for the last 9. He is 34 years old and has been around for a long time, since 2007, and has 42 caps. And he's played for a lot of teams in Sudan, currently with Al-Merrikh Omdurman there, but probably not a candidate. He was on the roster in 2008 African Cup and 2012 African Cup. He saw no action in 2008. But though he wasn't the starting keeper in 2012, he gained the starting position from game 2 onwards. Finally, Mustafa Mohammed, as possible but unlikely. Sorry, Mohammed Mustafa. Excuse me there. He played only in local tournaments until his first and only cap in June 2021. So an unlikely candidate. We'll see who made it among these players. It was Ali Abu Eshrin, our definite candidate, made the squad and will probably be the starter. Ishak Adam also made the squad. He'll be probably the backup. Muhammad Abuja, though, did not make the squad. He was our other likely candidate, and rather our possible but unlikely candidate, Muhammad Mustafa, made the squad. So veteran Akram Al-Hadi Salim was overlooked, probably aging out. He's 34 years old, but that's not that old for a goalkeeper. Okay, now we move to a bit of the chaos here. So I'll just introduce the players we did think were likely. Amir Kamal, we considered a definite candidate. He played 9 of their 11 games in 2021, was on the bench for 1. And he's a real veteran since 2010, has 69 caps and 2 goals. He's 34 years old, though. And he did start, at least started game 1 in 2012. Another definite candidate was Mohammed Eshrin. Mohammed Eshrin, maybe known as Mohammed Ahmed Saeed. And he had his first cap in March in 2021, but he played 8 of their remaining 10 games and was on the bench for 1 other. So new to the team in 2021. But now I'm guessing after the Arab Cup, he's got 14 caps. But he's quite old. Is he 42? Can that be right? No, I think he's, sorry, I think he's 24. I think I wrote down the wrong number there. Anyway, so we considered him a definite candidate as centre-back. Ahmed Wada, we considered likely. He played 3 games, including the last 2 of their 11 games, not including the African Cup in 2021, and was on the bench for 7 others. So if not a starter, then a steady substitute. And we'll just give a couple of other names at the possible level. Hussain El Gerif. Hussain El Gerif played 2 of their 11 games in 2021 and was on the bench for 1 other, but not selected for 8 games, including the last 4. And he's a 23-year-old with 12 caps since 2017. Salah Neymar is also a possible candidate. Salah Neymar played 3 of their 11 games in 2021, but not selected for 8 others, including the last 4. So we considered him a possible candidate. The 29-year-old has 12 caps since 2014, so it doesn't look like a kind of a regular for the team. Finally, Mustafa Cartoon, we consider possible but not likely. He played the first 2 of their games in 2021, but was not selected for the last 9. And so he's also 29, but only has 3 caps and has only been on the team since 2018. Okay, and now we move to see who made the squad, and this is where the surprises begin. So our definite candidates, Amir Kamal and Mohammed Eshrin, were not selected. Even for a preliminary squad. Excuse me, I have to take a sip of water here. All right, I hope you enjoyed that moment of silence for yourselves. So the definite candidates not selected, Ahmed Wada, the likely candidate, not selected, and our first possible candidate, Hussain El Gerif, not selected. However, Salah Neymar, the possible candidate, was chosen, and Mustafa Cartoon, although we had him as possible but unlikely, was chosen also. And then a couple of players were added to the squad. So Hassan Al Sadiq Hassan and Muhammad Kesra, sometimes known as Kasra, sometimes pronounced Kasra. Muhammad Kasra were both added. Now, both of these players are brand new to the squad, never appeared for the national team before being named to the preliminary and then final squad. So the veterans are gone and the rookies are in, is the long and short of the story. And we're going to see a little bit more of that. So left backs. For left back, we had a definite candidate in Faris Abdallah. He played 9 of their 11 games in 2021 and is a real veteran since 2012 with 52 caps, but he's still 28 years old. And I haven't been mentioning clubs much because they all play in Sudan, usually for one of the bigger clubs like Al Hilal or Al Merrikh in Abdel-Rahman. Okay, he was the definite candidate, and Ahmed Bibo, we considered a likely candidate. He played the last 6 of their 11 games. Once again, I'll say not including the Arab Cup. But he was not selected for the first 5 matches in 2021. He is 27 years old and has been with the team since 2017 and has 14 caps. So Ahmed Bibo, a likely candidate. I'll just give out a couple of names for possible but unlikely candidates because it turns out they didn't make the squad anyway. But Omar Al-Masri were kind of outside consideration, and Ahmed Tabanja also just kind of joined the team for a game or 2, or were on the bench for a couple of games, but not heavily involved. So actually we had Omar Al-Masri as possible but unlikely, and we had Ahmed Tabanja kind of off the squad. So again, surprises here because none of them made it. Our definite candidate Faris Abdallah was not selected, and nor was our likely candidate Ahmed Bibo. Rather, we have Muhammad Amin as a newcomer to the squad. I'll detail that in a moment. And we have Mazie Mohammadin. Mazie Mohammadin selected for the squad. So Muhammad Amin is actually a bit of an interesting character. He has Swedish citizenship, so one of the few players playing outside of Sudan and he's been with a few clubs, small clubs in Sweden. So he was brought in for this. Meanwhile, Mazie Mohammadin, or Mohammadin, is another one new to the squad, never appearing for the national team before being named to the preliminary, then the final squad. So he plays for Tuti Khartoum in Sudan. I believe that was the team that the manager Burhan Tia coached before he became manager of Sudan. Okay, so more surprises there and more coming as we look at right backs. We had actually three likely candidates. One of them was Athar El Tahir. Athar El Tahir had played 9 of their 11 games in 2021 and was on the bench for one. A real veteran since 2015 with 43 caps and 6 goals. He's 25 years old, so I should say a young veteran, but he certainly played a lot for the team. Next one is Waleed Hassan. And Waleed Hassan played 4 of their 11 games in 2021 and was on the bench for 4 others. So maybe not a starter there, but we considered him a likely candidate to make the squad. He's only been with the team since 2020 and has 8 caps, but is 30 years old, so a latecomer to the team. He's another one of the rare players who plays outside of Sudan, so he's with Al Mahala in Libya. And finally, Samawal Murgani, who we also considered likely. So 3 likely candidates we had. He had played 7 of their 11 games in 2021 and was on the bench for 2 others. And another kind of new to the squad in 2018, but amassed 26 caps in that time, but had been a latecomer because he's 30 years old also. Anyway, those were the likely candidates. However, none of them were selected. And rather, we have more kind of new names to the squad. So the first one is Moyad Abby. He actually, strangely, was not on the preliminary squad, but then was on the final squad. He has no caps for the national team, but he had appeared on the bench in March 2019, but wasn't called up since that time until named to the named actually to the final squad here, because he wasn't named to the preliminary squad. So he also plays in Sudan. Next one that was added was Amgad or Amjad. I get differing spellings of his name. Amgad Ahmed Ismail. Again, new to the squad, had never appeared before being named to the preliminary squad, so no caps for him. I think some of these players played a friendly in Ethiopia or friendly against Ethiopia, so some of them have 1 cap from that game, but still going into the cup very inexperienced at the international level. Amgad Ahmed Ismail is 28 years old. And a similar situation with Awad Zaid. He wasn't named to the preliminary squad, but then was named on the final squad. So he is 28 years old and plays for Al Ali Khartoum in Sudan. And again has no caps for the national team. And then there were a couple of other players named to the preliminary squad that didn't make it. And that is Amaricano and Ali Zizo, but they didn't make it to the final squad. Okay, so that actually the first ones I mentioned were right backs, but these guys, because they're so inexperienced, they're actually just listed as defenders, so they haven't played enough to have been specified as a right back or a left back or a central midfielder as a centre back. So we'll have to see once the tournament starts. So a whole new defence there for Sudan, and one wonders how they're going to do, especially when they come up against the bigger teams. But you never know. Sometimes these events kind of galvanize teams, and they sometimes play better than expected. Okay, well, for midfielders, we're moving on to midfielders. We had Diam Ajub. Diam Ajub had played 10 of their 11 games in 2021 and was on the bench for one other. So he was considered a definite, I may have said likely there, he's a definite candidate, or he had been, but we'll see if he survived the shake-up. We'll move to defensive midfielders. No, I'll just actually say that he did survive the shake-up. Maybe they just couldn't give him up. So, and I think I forgot to say about him, because he has been with the team since 2020, but has 20 caps for the national team. He's 26 years old, so they've been using him quite a bit, and seems like they couldn't replace him here. Okay, defensive midfielders, we had one definite candidate in Nazir al-Din al-Shikal. Let me try that again. Nazir al-Din al-Shikal. Played 10 of their 11 games in 2021. And a true veteran since 2007. He has 74 caps and is 36 years old. And I don't see him as having played in any of the African Cups there. So I'm not dead sure about that. But anyway, next one is Abu Abdallah. We considered him a likely defensive midfielder. He played 8 of their 11 games in 2021, was not selected for 3 others. He does play out of country in Qatar. He plays for Al Khor in Qatar, and been with the squad since 2015 and has 49 caps and 11 goals. I have him as 21 years old, but that doesn't seem right if he's been with the squad since 2015, but I'll have to leave it at that. Maybe the age is wrong there, because the 49 caps and 11 goals since 2015 seems correct, but the age doesn't seem correct. Okay, moving on though. Adele Salah Salah Adele as a possible candidate. Here, he had returned from a 2-year absence in September 2021 to play 6, including the last 4 of their remaining 9 games, and was on the bench for 2 others. So I might actually have moved him up to likely, but with the shake-ups, it probably is a moot point here. So we'll move on to a player who seems to be off the squad, Nazir Hamad. He was with the team since 2010 and had 42 caps, but he's 33 years old now. He actually started all 4 games in the 2012 African Cup, but last appeared in November 2019. So those were our candidates for the defensive midfield. However, none of them, Nasser Eldin Al-Shigail, Abu Agla Abdallah, Salah Adele, or Nazir Hamad made the squad. Instead, we have a few new names. So we have Suleiman Zakaria making the squad. And we have Abdel Rauf Yaqub, also known as Abdel Razik Rauf. So again, not really sure on the name that's used. He was not on the preliminary roster, but he made the final roster. That's Abdel Rauf Yaqub. And finally, Captain Bashir. So I'll tell you, each and every one of these, Suleiman Zakaria, Abdel Rauf Yaqub, and Captain Bashir, had never played for the national team and first appeared when being named to the preliminary squad, or in the case of Abdel Rauf Yaqub, the final squad, because he wasn't on the preliminary squad, was on the final squad. So there we go. Now, central midfielders is a bit easier. We actually didn't have any candidates, so it looked like they relied on those defensive midfielders in the center of the park. Central midfielders, there were none. However, in the shake-up, one was added, and it's Mohammed El Ghazafi. If I'm close to the name pronunciation there, but Mohammed El Ghazafi, or it could be Gaddafi. There's variations on the spelling of his name. But again, another candidate who is new to the squad. First appearance was on the preliminary squad and hadn't been heard of before that. Left midfielders, there were none, no players coded for that position, and there were none added for that position either. So maybe one of the defensive midfielders moves over there. Right midfielders, we had no candidates either. But we did have two new candidates brought in with the shuffle. So Goma Abbas Omer, and sometimes he's listed as Guma Abbas. Anyway, and the other one is Mustafa El Fadni. And both of these, once again, had never appeared for the national team until being named to the finals squad. Okay, moving on to left wingers, we did have one possible candidate in Ahmed Al-Tesh. Ahmed Al-Tesh had played 4 of their 11 games in 2021, and he was with the team since 2019 and has 16 caps, 28 years old. However, he was not selected, and instead Mohammed Hassun, or Mohammed Hassun Babakir, was brought in to that position. So Mohammed Hassun, again new to the squad, didn't appear for the national team until named to the preliminary squad. He's 23 years old and plays for Hay Al Wadi in Sudan. Okay, so we move on to right wingers, and we had as a likely candidate Yasir Mousmel, played. Oh, I'm not sure. I think I didn't make a good note here. But anyway, he played enough games in 2021 that we considered him a likely candidate there. And we'll move on to Al-Jazoli New. Al-Jazoli New we considered a possible candidate. He first appeared on the bench in March 2021 and played 5 of their remaining 11 games, including the last 3. Once again, the Arab Cup is not counted among those. And he was also on the bench for 2 games. So he's just been with the team since 2021 and is 19 years old. But we still considered him a possibility. And Yassin Hamad we considered possible but unlikely. Yassin Hamad is returned after an 11-month absence in September to play 2 of their remaining 9 games in 2021. So came in for a couple, but didn't appear in the last 7 matches. And he's also, interestingly, plays outside of Sudan. He plays in Hungary, and he played for Romanian teams before that. I believe he was born in Romania. Anyway, he is just 22 years old and has 7 caps for Sudan since 2019. Okay, so some of these guys made it, not the one we most expected. Yasir Musmel did not make the team, but our possible candidate, Al-Jazoli New, he did make the team, as did Yassin Hamad, even though we had considered him possible but unlikely. And then one more player was added, it's Sharif Omar Tafaha. Sharif Omar Tafaha, or maybe called Sharif Omar. And again, one of those players who had never been part of the national team until called up to the preliminary squad. Okay, and then we have a few players who, like some of the defenders, they're not really classified as what kind of midfielder they are, so they're just listed as a midfielder. And we don't know what kind they are. And I'll just mention a couple of names because these were possible but unlikely in the first place. So Mohammed Al-Taket and Rami Kurtikila. But both of them were kind of possible but unlikely. And Taj Eldin Yagub here seemed to be off the squad. So if they come back into the squad, I'll give a few more details. But it turns out none of them did, and rather there were a whole bunch of players added. But we'll just talk about one of them because 6 others were named on the preliminary squad but didn't make the final squad. So we'll just add. I had a lot of trouble with this player's name, so I'm not sure. There may be 2 players being referred to. But anyway, if there are 2 players, they were both born in 1997, so are 24 years old, and both play for a Cartoon club in Sudan. So the name I have is Abdelaziz Hassan Sheikh Eldin. And then the other name I have is Al-Sheikh Mohammed. So again, I'm not really sure if they're the same player, but regardless, the player had never played for the national team and was new to the squad when named to the preliminary squad. So I won't go over the 6 players who were named to the preliminary squad there. In fact, even when I tried to find information on them, I couldn't. So that suggests they also were new to the squad, like some of the others who are here. Okay, we'll take a look at the forward lines, beginning with attacking midfielders. And we had as a definite candidate Wali Aldin Keder. Wali Aldin Keder had played 9 of their 11 games and was on the bench for the 2 others in 2021. And he's been with the team since 2016 and has 19 caps at 26 years old. I'm getting stuffed up here, so I may have to pause to fix that problem, but we'll forge on. The other one was Mohammed Mukhtar, but we had him as a kind of not really a candidate because he just played the first of their games in 2021 and then disappeared. So we'll come back to him if he was selected. But in fact, he was not. But Kadir Wali Al-Din was selected for the squad. So kind of a steady presence in the attacking midfielders. And we're going to see with the forwards that they weren't kind of removed from the squad the way some of the defence and midfield was. So moving on to forwards, we have a definite candidate in Muhammad Abdel-Rahman. And I've actually heard good things about this player. So he seems the player to keep an eye on. And they were not bold enough to cut him. So he, I'll tell you right now, has made the squad. He played all 11 of their games in 2021 and scored 3 of their 9 goals in qualifying, including one against Ghana. So he was the top scorer for the team and seems to be a good player, Muhammad Abdel-Rahman. There was also Ramadan Ajab, who we considered likely. Ramadan Ajab had played 7 of their 11 games in 2021, was on the bench for 1 other. He's been with the team since 2010 and has 57 caps, but only as a forward 7 goals. So not a great goal count, but maybe he's more of a creator. He's 35 years old, so that's maybe a bit old for a forward. He was on the 2012 African Cup squad where he subbed in to a few games, but didn't start. And then we have a few possible candidates. So Mohammed El Rashid. Mohammed El Rashid is 27 years old, but he played 2 of their games in 2021, including the last one. So just made it onto the squad at the end there, and is a possible candidate here. He has 15 caps since 2019 and is 27 years old. I think I said that. Saif Tahiri, probably Saif Tahiri, had played 5 of their 11 games in 2021, but wasn't selected for 6 others, including the last 4. But he did score in each of their last 2 games of African Cup qualifying. And he has played since 2017. He has 26 caps and 9 goals, so a pretty good return there. And he played most of his career in Sudan, but recently moved to Farco in Egypt. Ruaz Al Qaeda is also a possible candidate. He played 4, including 2 of the last 3 of their 11 games in 2021. Once again, I'll remind that these don't include Arab Cup games. And he was on the bench for 5 others. So he's been with the team since 2013, and he has 37 caps, but only 3 goals, which is not much for a forward. He's 32 years old. So I have an alternative name for him. It's Moaz Abdelrahim Gismala. But the primary name I have for him is Muaz Al Qaeda. So Sudanese names are a little bit confusing for me there. And finally, the final possible candidate, Ahmed Saeed. Ahmed Saeed may also be called Ahmed Saeed Wood Abu Khan. And he played the first of their 11 games in 2021 and was on the bench for 4 others, including the last 3. So a possible candidate. But he's 32 years old and he just has 2 caps since 2019. So barely on the team there. And the other ones we'll just give as names. Sheriff Eldin Shiboob is possible but unlikely. That's Sheriff Eldin Shiboob. And Waleed Al-Shawala seems to be off the squad. So we'll come back to those if they made the squad. And let's see how we did with forwards. Well, they certainly weren't willing to give up Muhammad Abdel-Rahman, so he is there. However, Ramadan Ajab did not make it. He was our likely candidate, but Mohammed El-Rashid, one of our 4 possible candidates, did make it to the team, but none of the other 3 did. So Saif Tahiri, Muaz Al-Quaz, or Ahmed Saeed didn't make it, nor did the unlikely or off the team candidate. However, one player was brought in, and that player is Musab Ahmed Isa. Musab Ahmed Isa. Sometimes called Musa Ahmed, sometimes called Musa Isa, so not dead sure. And there was one candidate who was on the preliminary squad but didn't make the final squad, and that is Mohammed Abdallah Zorga, considered but not chosen. And just Musab Ahmed Isa is another player who had never appeared for the national team until named to the preliminary squad. So there we have it. Big changes on Sudan. I'm kind of reluctant to kind of guess who will be starters, but we'll go through some of the names that you can expect to see on the field in 2021. First goalkeeper is pretty assured at Ali Abu Eshrin. Defenders Salah Neymar and Mustafa Cartoon survived the purge that happened after the Arab Cup. And I guess the players who were brought in would probably not be starters, many of them never having played for the national team before. Left back, we don't really have a candidate, but 2 players brought in, Muhammad Amin and Mazie Mohammadin. Probably one of them will be the starter. And then we have 3 unspecified general defenders who we don't know exactly what position they play, but Moyad Abby, Amgan Ahmed Ismail, and Awad Zaid may appear. But definitely one player who should start is Diam Ajub. He's a midfielder, kind of a versatile midfielder, so plays all over the midfield. And again, a lot of the other players in the midfield are new, and it's hard to say whether they would start or not. I could go through all the names again because we don't know which ones are likely to start. But in the attack, it's a little more clear. So Wali Eldin Kadir is an attacking midfielder who we had considered definite, and he made the squad, so he'll probably be a starter. And almost certainly Muhammad Abdel-Rahman, one of their biggest names, will start as a forward. But Mohammed El-Rashid, depending on if they start with more than one forward, is kind of a maybe. And we also have Musab Ahmed Issa just brought in at the very end. So there we go. That is kind of an overview of Sudan. If you're interested in more African Cup teams or players, we've done a podcast on each of the groups that's more focused on the team. And we're doing ambitiously trying to do a podcast on each of the teams. And if you're interested in those, you can check our website at soccerfiles.captivate.fm. That's Soccerfiles with a PH. Or you can just search that on Google or International Soccer Preview, and we should come up. Maybe not first, but we should come up on the first page, let's say. And then we also have an email address at soccerfiles@gmail.com, so you can give advice on my terrible pronunciation of Sudanese names, or actually what I would like is to know from Sudanese fans what name they actually go by, because for many of these players I have 2 or 3 variations on their name. Anyway, we would be happy to hear from you. That's it for this podcast on Sudan, and I hope it helps you to enjoy the African Cup. Thanks so much, and see you again. Bye-bye.